Okay, I'm just going to start with the introduction then. My name's Julie McDevitt, and I'm the director of the Teaching and Learning Center here at Palo Alto College. And it is with great pleasure that I have for you today a session on equity and inclusion with Sophie Ortiz, who is an adjunct faculty member at PAC and at SAC in sociology. Dr. Jacqueline Toribio, she is from the University of Texas at Austin, my alma mater, Hookem, and she's in the Department of Spanish and Portuguese, from which I graduated with a degree in Spanish. So it's really cool to have her here. And also we have Dr. Ricky Bettinger from University of Houston. So we have three presenters who have wonderful information to share for you. We are recording this session. Any questions, please put them in the chat, and the questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We'll also have a survey at the very end if you wouldn't mind giving the presenters some feedback. And again, welcome to the TLC Friday webinar series, and I'll turn it over to you wonderful women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation and for having us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see who we all are. I'll give a quick introduction to kind of situate this conversation and orient us to, what programs are we coming from and such, and why are we speaking with you all today. But again, thank you so much for having us. As you can see, so I'm Ricky Bettinger from the University of Houston, and I'm joined, by my colleagues. Thank you for that introduction. And the three of us represent three humanities graduate preparation programs in Texas designed to support students from underrepresented backgrounds. And so I'll, again, briefly introduce you all, but we were already talking earlier, before we started, about the ways that we really work with our community colleges, with our students who are transfer students, for me, from HCC, from Lone Star, from San Antonio. And so I think this is a really great opportunity for us all to be in conversation about how we can mutually support one another in our programs. So I'm the Associate Director of the Mellon Research Scholars Program at the University of Houston, and which is housed in the Office of Undergraduate Research and Major Awards. And the program at UH is in its fourth year. And let me go ahead and just show you kind of the names of these programs. It's in its fourth year, and all three of our programs that we'll speak about today, they are all kind of pipeline programs, right? We work with developmental, academic, and mentorship activities from their students in their junior year into their senior and applying to graduate school. And they're all a little bit different, but really importantly, they are all supported by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and designed to build a bridge to the professoriate for historically underserved students and others invested in diversifying the academy, specifically in the humanities and the humanist social sciences is where we work. All three programs include undergraduate research component, mentorship, mentorship in myriad forms, both faculty mentored research, but also mentorship that is peer and also from staff side, and graduate school application preparation. Sophia M. Ortiz is the Associate Director of the Mexico Center at the University of Texas at San Antonio and Program Coordinator of the UTSA Mellon Undergraduate Humanities Pathways Program. And so beginning in their junior year, students also go through these this developmental projects, research, and receive a stipend and research funds. Almeida, excuse me, Almeida Jacqueline Toribio, as you heard, is Professor of Linguistics. She's also the faculty director of the UTMMUF, the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship Program, which is the centerpiece of the Mellon Foundation's initiative to increase diversity in the faculty ranks. And so it was established in 1988. UT Austin joined this consortium in 2015, and those students are actually recruited in their sophomore year to begin a two-year program through MMUF, which includes substantial financial support, research funds, also even student loan repayment funds once they enter PhD programs. So a really exciting program there. So as you can see, all three of us are associated in different ways with programs dedicated to diversifying the faculty in humanities and thinking about it from how do we get students prepared to get there into graduate school, a pipeline of young scholars supporting their entry. All of our programs include extensive mentorship, undergraduate research, and tailored graduate school preparation. And funding is a large component, but we realize that that's the grant monies and access to monies are not available for everyone, right? So what are some of the lessons that we've kind of learned in mentorship? And that's what we want to talk about more today, and thinking about undergraduate research as well. So that's kind of the big overview of our 3 programs. And with that, I will turn it over to Jacqueline to get us started.
Thank you so much, Ricky, and thank you, Julie, for facilitating this event. So let me just start with some general comments about our institutions. As designated R1 schools, the University of Houston and the University of Texas both boast high research activity among faculty, but our campuses additionally distinguish themselves for the human and institutional resources that promote research by undergraduates specifically. So undergraduates can pursue research in their chosen fields, for example, through directed research on faculty-initiated projects or through independent research in courses and capstone theses. They can also contribute to research outside of their specializations, lending their expertise to organize research groups. And they can present and publish their sole and collaborative work, communicating findings to broad audiences, while at once building confidence, augmenting networks, and enhancing their professional profiles. But more generally, through their research endeavors, our students contribute new knowledge and perspectives that shape our future. As noted by my colleague Ricky Bettinger, I direct the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship Program at UT Austin. And at the core of our program are the dual pillars of Cohort and Mentorship, which support fellows' research success. The program places significant emphasis on fostering peer cohort capacity and on promoting positive faculty-student mentoring experiences. In normal times, fellows meet weekly in a seminar with me during each semester, and these include lessons on professionalization and self-care. We also travel together to attend regional and national conferences, and we participate in various co-curricular activities, some of them organized, like lunching with a prominent visiting scholar, and others more spontaneous, like attending a community play. Outside of seminar and their individual major curricula, they are also required to maintain a focus on their research, so meeting regularly with their faculty mentors, submitting progress reports, and preparing their honors and capstone theses. All the while they're preparing for graduate school, admissions dossiers, entrance exams, etc., and the end of year colloquium where their accomplishments are recognized and celebrated by cohorts, family, faculty, and friends. But the COVID-19 pandemic and the attendant uncertainty altered all of that. In search of wisdom and perspective, I learned the importance of grace, of extending grace to one another and to ourselves. So could you do the next slide? So grace part 1, radical tenderness. Our fellows were eager to host one of their own, Ariana Brown, a UT graduate from African and African Diaspora Studies and Mexican American Studies at UT. She had gone on to earn her MFA and now traverses the country as an award-winning poet. She would return to UT with great fanfare and a myriad of activities. With a mandated COVID restriction on our event, I determined that the event not be canceled, that we would go on. So discussions with the fellows and with the poet opened up possibilities for something that was much more meaningful, a virtual, radically tender workshop and reading. During the evening online event, Ariana Brown, who is dubbed a part-time curandera, who, quote, validates Black girl rage in all its forms, led an exercise that allowed participants to initiate conversations about care and healing. Notably, the participants included fellows and mentors, as well as family and friends, all in need of this radical tenderness. The concept of radical tenderness has been carrying me through this pandemic, one of our fellows recently shared. And the program teaching assistant assessed the event as an example of the ways in which Mellon offers fellows, quote, a place that could be genuine about their struggles and feel safe engaging in community. It also gave the virtual space more meaning so we could engage in future activities with more conviction. So this was right at the beginning of pandemic, and it served a very useful purpose for us in continuing to engage us in community in this new venue. So indeed, the virtual space was transformed for our spring colloquium, which was refocused on process versus outcome. So part 2. Thank you, Ricky. Process versus outcome. So as faculty director of the Mellon Mays Undergrad Fellowship Program, it's normally my privilege, indeed a pleasure, to convene the Mellon Fellows and family and friends, as well as their research mentors, each and every one of whom we feel strongly really shares in the achievements that we commemorate at the end of the semester colloquium and luncheon. But it would not go unremarked that the virtual end-of-year colloquium was markedly distinct from iterations of previous years. So last spring had not been a typical semester. So in lieu of sharing the culmination and extension of their research projects, the graduating seniors presented a more candid discussion of their trajectories. One of our fellows, now at Stanford University as a freshman, graduate student, related a very personal story of struggle, one that he had not shared. From harboring deep doubts about the merits of his work when after a research presentation, which was an ethnographic portrait of an immigrant community, someone asked him, well, where do you see this work going and why does it matter? To feeling alienated by peers, he met with some future colleagues in his chosen field at another institution in the DC area, to remain unnamed, where he was told unequivocally by other participants, everything here is American but you. He ended his Mellon presentation with an appeal, quote, it's important to contextualize our work from a perspective that gives us agency. Academics are not machines of knowledge. We're humans who have lunch, hang out with friends, have hobbies, are vulnerable, cry, and feel. Mentors too acknowledged setbacks last spring, their own and their mentees, while also praising the resilience and fortitude that brought the fellows to that day. Like the fellows, the faculty mentors welcomed the opportunity to discuss more than research. One stated there, quote, I appreciate that we were able to pivot to accommodate the changed circumstances of the COVID lockdown. I'm very proud of my mentee, who's in theater and dance, incidentally. And I appreciated that they were encouraged to offer more open and personal reflections at the annual colloquium this year. Their creativity and deep ethical commitments were allowed to shine alongside academic achievements in this extraordinary year. In this extraordinary year, directing the program meant recognizing the importance of grace. And for this coming spring, students will be invited to share on the ways in which their experiences and knowledge production contributes to uplifting communities. Their projects, which include topics such as language, computers, and society, policing and gentrification, the criminalization of poverty, the role of flea markets in healthcare and undocumented communities, surveillance of Black and brown bodies, dancing together apart, comobility and performance in quarantine, slavery and surveillance in the antebellum South, and examining communications and accountability in student organization mission statements. So as you can appreciate, these promise another affirming experience for all. Thank you. I turn to Sophia.
Thank you. On my feedback on the presentation, we worked a lot of the programs are similar because we collaborate a lot with each other on our students. What we're doing here at UTSA is, on the next slide, Ricky, please, is we're looking at the psychological and we're looking at the testimonials of our fellows that we're recruiting that are coming into this program. So the program, as Dr. Toribio mentioned, is working a lot with, it's funded by the Mellon Foundation, but it's working a lot with the audience of the underrepresented, underprivileged, first generation. And we're looking at these students that are coming in and having these intimidation. And first of all, they're having intimidation about going to college, right? They feel that they don't fit in, and much less to apply for a program, especially a program that, you know, has these different resources to help the students. They don't feel that they are a part of that. They don't feel that they are qualified for these programs. So a lot of the things that we're starting to see in this program is starting to see that they're having challenges with not being able to to have this GPA or to be able to qualify. And a lot of the things that we're doing on our end is collaborating with the colleges, with the community colleges like Alamo colleges. The pipeline that we're trying to create for these students is to have these mentors from the community colleges and the universities, and to help these students not fall through the cracks, because a lot of them don't have the support. A lot of them don't know how to do college, and a lot of them don't know about these programs. And when they do know about the programs, they don't feel that those programs are for them. What we have been doing, and we have had a really good pipeline with Alamo colleges, is going into the colleges, talking to the students, being part of the transfer fairs, being part of any type of fair that Alamo colleges or any community college in San Antonio, in this case, is distributing or holding. And we are communicating and we're working with them to show these students and to get them to know that, hey, we have this program, it could be for you, the resources are there for you, and the help is there for you. A lot of these students, and we noticed this in the last program that we had, is that a lot of the students, when they are transferring to the community, to the Alamo, to the higher education, that right away they have to start, our program starts right when this class is, right when they're transferring over to the university. And because of that, they don't have very much time to look at the program, try to find a mentor for the program, or a faculty mentor, and also more even so, being able to apply for the program before the deadline. So that's another reason why we also have this pipeline that we have asked to work with the community colleges to go in and start talking about our programs, so we can provide this support, and we can provide the information that needs to be distributed to these students, so they can understand that they are qualified and they could possibly be eligible. And a lot of things that the students don't know is that when they transfer from the community college to the upper division, a lot of the GPAs are going to change. A lot of the numbers will change, and they just might be able to fit in. They just might be able to get qualified. But until they get somebody to go in there and actually go deeper and talk about the program, where they kind of get to know and won't feel so intimidated. And because of that, and the testimonials and the interviews that we've received from our past cohorts, those are some of the indicators that have been brought up to our attention, and some of the I would say the reasons why we don't get, and we wonder, why don't we get so many students applying for these programs that are very, very beneficial for them, especially for this, for this type of audience. And the reason is because the intimidation, because they don't feel that they're worth it. They don't feel that they're eligible. And of course, that's, especially if you're coming from these areas that I'm speaking of, they're going to have these different ways of thinking. And so we gathered this information from all our surveys. We're in our sixth cohort now. We're in our 6th year of funding for our Mellon students. And from all the previous cohorts that we have, we started gathering all this data, and we started realizing, well, this is what we need to work on, so we can help these students understand that, yes, you will be qualified, and yes, you might, qualify for this, but we need to show you. And I think that Alamo colleges and our pipeline with UT Austin and University of Houston has helped a lot by coming together and creating and opening these pipelines. Because of that, we're able to provide more resources, more support, and students are now being able to see that there is opportunities out there for them, so they're not left out. Can you go to the next slide, please? And that being said, we have at UTSA have come up with different types of programs. And just like Dr. Toribio was saying, when we do get our students in, they start in our program, the first thing we do is we start talking to them about, education, what they want to do. And of course, we mentor them, we pair them up with a faculty mentor. And that's the most important thing that they could do, is because they have this faculty mentor that will be with them until they graduate from college. And the main thing is for them to have this mentor, so they can have somebody to go to when they need a letter of support, or they need, some kind of, even if it's being able to talk to them about a test coming up or something. Just this peer mentoring that they have, and this support from faculty has really helped all these students finish, and has helped them be able to get into these PhD programs. We follow these students all the way until their PhD, and then after the PhD program, to see where they have ended up. And so far, throughout these 6 years of our cohorts that we've had, I would 98.9% of our students have been accepted into PhD programs, which is probably wouldn't have happened if they didn't have that mentor support, if they didn't have that faculty support. And not just that, we also have dual faculty support from Alamo colleges and from UTSA. So these students also keep some of their professors from Alamo colleges. And because of that, we've also been able to collaborate with Alamo colleges by having presentations, by sharing guest speakers, by having peer mentoring from both Alamo colleges and UTSA, but also the communication, the connections that we have with these pipelines, and then also bringing it out to other universities like UT Austin, University of Houston, and having those students peer mentor each other has been such a great success to our students that we're having great outcomes. We're disseminating great numbers, and these students are coming back to peer mentor the new students that are coming in. And because of this, we're seeing a great result in graduation rates for minorities and for underrepresented students. We're seeing them also give back to the community, and we're seeing them also teach at the communities and at the schools that they were at before, and also at other schools that they would never even possibly think to get into. Like Dr. Toribio was saying, one was just at Stanford. We had one that just got accepted to Princeton, who would have never thought that he would have got accepted to Princeton. So all these things that they have, these potentials that they have, and because they have the mentors that look like them, that can relate to them, and because of that, they're able to proceed and to be able to actually accomplish the goals that we have outlined for them in the grant. And I think these interventions and these collaborations that we're building with them has been a very great success because, excuse me, one second. Because the Mellon Foundation, like I said, is a very, very prestigious foundation. And for us to get refunded and to get, that means that we're doing good things. And I think that the reason we're doing these good things is not only because of us, but because of you, because of all the other people that are working with us and helping the community and helping the audience that we're working with. And I'm not going to I'm going to reiterate, but as far as, the grant itself, we bring in mentors, we bring in different speakers. We do have them apply for GRE exams. We have them apply for PhD programs. We pay for those programs. We pay for their mentoring, for their research tools. We take them on different tours so they can see different programs that are not just in Texas, but also all over that they could probably apply for, resources that could be out there, things that they've never had before that they could never possibly think that they would have gone and actually experienced. The drawback that we had was a lot of people weren't applying and we didn't know why. And now we know why. And I think by having these cohorts and having these different testimonials from the students and figuring out what is it that you need us to do to make this grant better has given us this opportunity to have, one, get refunded, and two, be able to get all these students from these underrepresented populations to actually graduate and get PhDs when they never would have. And it's amazing to see them coming back out here and giving their talks and talking about it and being part of a program or being a director of a program or a professor, knowing that they were part of our grant. And I think that's what's more rewarding. And the fact that the universities and the community colleges, again, being very proactive in helping our students. And all of this is a big success for all our community students all around in San Antonio, especially, and the fact that it helps us work with our students. Me as a professor at the Alamo colleges has helped me be able to be more understanding, and it's helped me be able to work with my students and not give up on them, because I used to have a lot of students that would drop classes right away because they're intimidated, because they think that, research or anything is very intimidating. But if you sit there and you talk to them and you explain to them and you help them and where they're coming from because of the testimonials that you've read from the research, you will see a huge difference, because I see a huge difference on my students that they're willing and they're trying. And even though they have all these different barriers that they have to face, they still get it done because they want to break that barrier. They want to get somewhere. They want to move their family up this mobility ladder, and they want to be able to get out of the situation that they're in. And I think that if the other side, if the faculty or the staff is very understanding and can understand where they're coming from and work with them, that you will accomplish something and you will get somewhere. And I'm not just saying this in a professor situation, but also throughout the grant, from what I'm learning from the grant, what I'm learning from all these students, and what I'm learning from other students, and listening to other students and listening to other people. I've learned a lot more and how to communicate and how to understand and how to work with them. And I think that these things are very important when it comes to the students, especially now that we're in this pandemic. I've also noticed a lot of social and emotional issues that these students are facing. And again, how do we work with these students? How do we help them? I mean, it's bad enough that we probably feel like that, but can you imagine the students and the ones that don't have any type of support. And I think that's very important. And this really helps with the intervention of our students. And this is how we looked at it in our research. And this is how we're trying to connect the dots and trying to make sure that everything is kind of easy transition for them to come in from community colleges to university level and not feel intimidated and not feel like there's nobody there to help them, as long as there's some kind of liaison or there's some kind of somebody to come back to, even if it's like we were saying earlier, if you have students that want to just reach out to any of us, we would be happy to help them if they want to have any interest at UT Austin or UTSA or UT Houston. I mean, we are here for them because we know we've been there, so we know exactly what they're facing. And so our goal is to try to reach out to more students in that capacity and see how we can help them as well and make them academically successful to reach PhDs in the future. Thank you. I'm done, Rick.
Yeah, my toolbar shifted and I couldn't find my mute button. So, awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to get a little nervous because I just saw that mowers are going to be outside my window like any second. So I apologize right now that that's going to happen. So my name, again, I'm Ricky Bettinger, and I'm here with the Mellon Research Scholars Program. And I actually wanted to speak with you all, kind of frame it with our 2-week-long graduate school preparation boot camp held in May every year, and kind of what I've been reflecting on with that, which is the importance of serving. And this comes from Gina Ann Garcia's model of what it means to be a Hispanic serving institution. And I think it's a really a helpful way to kind of sit back and reflect on our classes, on our program development, on our institutions, on our bigger structure, et cetera. But I'm going to kind of use that to frame some reflections on the 2-week graduate school prep boot camp that we do with the Mellon Research Scholars Program. So our 2-week program is designed to prepare students to apply to graduate school, covering everything from how to identify a graduate school program to developing application documents, including the personal statement, to also introduce students to numerous faculty voices. And that's one thing that, Jacqueline mentioned earlier, like a candid reflection of their trajectories, both the students sharing that, but also professors sharing that. How did you come to the academy? How did you, what led you here? And to show that that's not a straight line, that there's not one way, and that there are tips and tricks and things that we need to unveil to learn both the systemic oppressions, challenges, to actually access some of these tools and resources, but then also that it doesn't have to look a certain way, that you don't have to be a specific kind of student. There's multiple paths into and throughout the academy. And so I think it's helpful for students to really hear that from numerous, myriad faculty voices so they can see themselves also reflected in those trajectories. Following the boot camp, so our boot camp happens in May for 2 weeks, and it's the transition point between spring when they've started the program, they're starting to get to know one another a little bit. Right now we're doing it virtually, right? So getting to know one another, and then in the summer they do a full-time summer research project. And so the boot camp really forms the cohort building aspect. It's both bringing attention and sharing information about how to apply to graduate school, but doing so in a cohort atmosphere where it really develops this the peer relationships that we find so important to the program. So on this very busy slide, I have a screenshot there of what our Mellon Graduate School Bootcamp schedule was last spring. And you can see the variety of topics and speakers that we bring in, professors joining us from philosophy, English, Hispanic studies, history, staff coming and speaking, 2 student panels comprised of past Mellon scholars and current graduate students. When I joined the office in fall of 2019 and took on this position, the program had already been, 2 years in existence, and I wanted to make sure that I was being really specific and intentional about the way that graduate school prep was approached holistically, but also with tangible key takeaways, right? And so I also knew that COVID or not, we had to incorporate discussions on mental health and wellness in culturally affirmative ways. So those things were already on my mind when COVID started to come into play last spring, and so they became all the more pressing, right? How do we do that in this now heightened moment of stress and challenges? So the strategies for thriving in graduate school, developing soft skills was actually my session that was tailored to the topic of culturally affirmative mental health and wellness practices. Professor of Mexican American Literature, Amanda Ellis, spoke with students about specific strategies that they could employ, both as undergraduate students and then later as graduate students. And then the topic came up in numerous other sessions as well. And that's where I really think about my role as connector, or my role as connecting students to different resources, right? Who are the voices that I want them to hear from? People who will speak very candidly about strategies to face the academy, right? To face the challenges of research, both very emotionally, but also practically, like how do you set up a research project? How do we do this as an undergraduate? In the office where I work, Office of Undergraduate Research and Major Awards, we say we have undergraduate research programs, and 75% of our students are STEM students, right? We think that research as an undergrad happens in a lab. It happens with a grad TA. It looks a certain way. I always think of it with a white coat and a microscope, right? And so what does this look like in the humanities? How do we model for the students what humanities engaged research looks like, both like related to things in the community and far and away? So what does that look like, and how can we help make that visible for students so they can start preparing for these competitive graduate school applications if that's where they really choose to be? So again, mixing these kind of tangibles and intangibles is what I'm always trying to think about, the interplay there. Very tangibly, like how do you search for graduate school programs for your interests? How do you find faculty, right? They're always surprised to find out that it's really more about the faculty at the graduate school, in the programs of their choice that they need to work with. How do you reach out to faculty? How do you find out what they're doing? How do you evaluate fit? And we do this very we have speakers come in and they actually have, exercises where we can talk through like, well, why would you choose? And students say, well, I wouldn't choose that because of, this reason that is really personal to me. And then why do students even want to apply to graduate school, or why don't they want to apply to graduate school? Is it because they didn't see it as an option because they don't know about the funding opportunities, right? Or is it because they've been raised to believe that success is in a specific path when really their heart is elsewhere? Can we make that open, create a space where those conversations can happen, and where there isn't a right answer, I think is a really important part of the program. For the tangibles, again, we require and workshop a research proposal so students have the practice articulating a research plan through the spring semester. They've prepared to carry out that research plan through the summer. We build in due dates and peer review to increase accountability. Students develop drafts of their application materials. And again, we look at actual acceptance offers. What does that even look like? Trying to make it really visible, this process that so many of us learned only through doing, right? Only through going through it did we actually learn. I have no idea what a funding letter looks like from a graduate school acceptance. So how can we make that visible for the students? And then also I think, again, these intangibles, the strategies for thriving, right, in graduate school, for example, like how can we help prepare students from underrepresented backgrounds to thrive in spaces in which they have been historically marginalized, right? So if we are, coming from a program that is really trying to be very culturally affirmative, and then we are preparing them and they're being very competitive applicants, and we're sending them far and away, go and do at an elite institution, what does that look like? How can we help prepare them to succeed in that later space after they are with us? So these things are kind of always on my mind. So with that, again, I said that I was, the importance of serving as coming from Garcia's Becoming Hispanic Serving Institutions. And so on this slide, I've included her typology of Hispanic serving institution organizational identities. And again, I think that it can be instructive as you reflect on a programmatic level, like on really small levels, but also this is for an institutional organizational level, as in her study. And again, this is not a progressive spectrum of bad to good. It's just thinking about what is appropriate for each program and for your goals and your mission of your program. So in Garcia's explanation, a Latinx serving organizational identity is when the institution enrolls 25% Latinx students, produces an equitable number of outcomes for Latinx students. So we're thinking about of our students, specifically our grant, I'm thinking Latinx, also African American, first gen students. Are those students getting into the programs? Are they finding that financial support as well? But also enacts a culture that enhances the educational and racial ethnic experience of Latinx students, adapted for our program, again, to recognize the racial ethnic experience of diverse students of color backgrounds. So with that funding from a grant, this is obviously concerned with outcomes. Part of our success is based on the numbers that I report to them. That's the Latinx producing part of this typology. But I don't think that it's enough just to get them there. So I believe that it's my responsibility through this program to ensure that they have the tools to take with them as they continue in what Garcia argues a racially stratified system of higher education. Furthermore, we need to honor the experience of students in the now, and certainly through COVID, this has become really apparent as we try and all teach from home and think and mentor from home and across distance, how we bridge distance. We have to support them in their complicated lives. So how do they pursue research and pursue these things while living with complicated lives, and all the more complicated with COVID? And that's, again, the enhancing part of this typology. So again, for our program, I reflect on the ways that it is and is not Latinx and other identities serving. And I use this as a guide for my reflection, and I offer it today as a potential guide for your all reflections in your own work. Are we recruiting enough Latinx and Black applicants? How are we evaluating equitable outcomes? Am I creating a space that affirms diverse racial and ethnic experiences in multiple forms of knowledge? We're fortunate that we have a grant, so I'm able to pay guest speakers for their time, for their labor to come and speak with our students, right? And that's not always an opportunity, but it is important to, if we're thinking about who is doing the mentoring, to also honor the work that you're all doing, that professors are doing, right? That faculty and staff are doing for students. And so how can I create a program that also fits in with faculty mentor schedules? How can I assist them in mentoring the students and create scaffolded kind of mentorship experiences for them? And also recognize their labor through, we have a supply stipend, and then also paying guest speakers, things that I can do to honor their work as well as faculty mentors of this research. So I think that is what I wanted to. We do, on this slide, the three of us had put together a couple resources that we recommended. So I offer those there as just some additional reading and works. But that is my presentation as well. And I think we're all, Sophie and I are happy to take any questions. And also Jacqueline, certainly any follow-up emails with her as well. And we thank you for having us.
Thank you, ladies. We're a small group. If you'd like to ask questions, please feel free to unmute yourself. You can also put questions in the chat.
I'd be interested in talking about, because this is really exciting. Thank you for the presentation. I'd be interested in talking a little bit about expanding notions of what qualifies as research, because I think that that's something that can be a source for allowing our students from underrepresented groups to explore things that are more community-based and or activism. And I think that sometimes we want to, when we talk about undergraduate research, we want to get them used to the academic, to what fits in academia, right? So how do we expand what qualifies as research, and how do we create then students who are not only equity minded, but are community based minded as well, that they want to engage with their own communities and bring back to their communities some of this knowledge and expand not only their knowledge base, but the knowledge base of the people that they will be presenting to. That was a loaded question, I know, I'm sorry. But it's what came to mind as I'm thinking about, as I was listening to you all talk about what this is.
I can start off because I'm actually that's what we're doing right now. We that's a really good question. It is a loaded question. And for example, the humanities, this grant that we have through Mellon, it is a humanities grant. So these students can only work on projects that have to do with humanities. It can be history, anything that falls into humanities. And so we have been working a lot with Alamo colleges and with all the humanities areas in Alamo colleges. And so we have had different types of presentations. We have invited students to different presentations so they can see what it's like to have a humanities career, what it's like to work in humanities research. But not only just humanities, we have other grants that are out there too, such as the Institute of Educational Sciences, which works with students that don't want to just do humanities. They want to do something in the social science field, education, or anything that has to do with sciences. So there's opportunities out there for both fields. So basically, it's well-rounded. It's very covered as far as the subjects. It's how do you get there, and who do you work with, and how do I apply for that, and how do I know when it's going to start, and how do I know when it's going to end? And this again is where the pipeline comes in. It's where we're actually reaching out and communicating and working with the actual faculty and administrators in the community colleges directly with these people and meeting and going in there and trying to figure out what we can do so we can show and we can invite all these different types of underrepresented, or these diversity of students, right? And what they would fit in. So make sure that they know about what's being what's out there for them. Because like I said, the humanities, okay, it's just going to focus on this area, but there are other opportunities out there. And how are they going to know that? Well, because of this pipeline that we have. And a lot of it has to do with the faculty and the staff. A lot of it has to do with, for example, one of the things that we thought of today that we didn't bring up the last time in our other presentation was having to recruit these students that are coming from the Alamo colleges going straight to UTSA. Right when they get there, not only are they brand new students, but they have to find a mentor. They have to apply for a program. They have to have all this done. They don't even know what they're doing yet. So how do they do that before they get there? Well, if we go in ahead of time, like we've been doing now, and having these, collaborations with the different areas, we already start them. We already go in and we tell them, this is what's offered to you. This is what you can apply for. But it also takes the part of the professors and the faculty to also start incorporating and inculcating into them on how they should start looking for, if they're going to apply for, let's say UTSA, start looking for mentors, look at the programs, read up on the programs, see what you want to apply for, look at the professors in that program, see who you can match up with, and things like that. And in our program, we have a list of professors that are mentors within that program, and it has their research outline. So the students can actually start looking at the mentors and see if their research aligns with what they like and what they want to do. And then guess what? They can just peer up with that mentor. And then we come in and we help them peer up with that mentor. And we already start giving them the application, and we start giving them the information that they need to submit to us before they even go to the university. So they can already have all this in line before they even get there. And then we can start working with them transitionally and not push everything on them when they already don't even know what they're doing in the first place when they get there. So we avoid a lot of this, I guess they're already feeling intimidated. We avoid a lot more intimidation by doing it ahead of time. And we have been doing that a lot with San Antonio College, Palo Alto College, and St. Philip's College. Those are the three community colleges that we've worked with diligently. A lot of it just because it's Hispanic serving and historically Black universities. But because of that, because we're at the downtown campus, a lot of our students go to the downtown campus from these three colleges. And so that's how we have been working with this pipeline and helping our students. Again, I'm not saying that we're able to reach everybody, but because a lot of it has to do with, the other side too, right? Having to make sure that those students are aware of what it's like to go into a four-year university. And so it takes the part of both institutions to get to that student. And that's how we've been working on our pipeline.
I wanted to jump in at a couple points too. Yeah, I think that's a really big challenge that we actually have students, I think even just having research in the title of the program is intimidating, right? Like, well, I'm a good student, but I'm not ready to do research or to create a whole research project. And then also we have really great creative students, right? Students who are doing creative writing, creative works. I worked with a student last year who was an English literature, and also a dance minor. And her English literature faculty really was pointing her in one direction for research in a more traditional sphere, and even with the sciences, but then she really wanted to bring in the dance. And so it was through a lot of one-on-one conversations of how can we make this, she really led that to be a conversation between an interdisciplinary conversation, right? But it takes a lot of conversations and telling the students that they can design their own project, which is frightening, which is scary, right? But also, so with the community-based, I think thinking of the structure of the seminars and who I'm putting the students in front of. So we had a seminar last month with Arte Publico Press and the Recovery Program, who really spoke very specifically about the digital humanities, about working with the community, about doing this work, about pushing back against what the archive is, right? And to be really community focused. And so showing that is an option for research. And then for other students who I think even applying and in conversations about the program who are brand new to even thinking that this is something that they could be doing, saying, sometimes the first step is a literature review. And if that's where you're at, like that's where we're at. Yeah. And that's great. And that maybe then next year you take that into something further. Right. And so we really want to adapt the program to meet them where they are, with that kind of a more holistic understanding of what research is and what the research process is. I think we've talked with had poets and such come in and talk about, okay, what does research look like? And then how do you articulate the value of your work, especially for when we all know that our work is so personal. So how do we articulate the importance of our work, but also situate it within, if you have to talk and pitch your work to a graduate school application, right? You have to talk about it where it fits in the academy or in the scholarly conversation. So how do we got to know the conversation that's happening, but also focus on that it can be very creative or inspired, or that it doesn't have to be a traditional form, I guess. But that's like a lot of conversation.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to that. Another thing too that the Mellon Foundation provides for the fellows is they have them present at a conference. So we have a conference set up for them. So they practice during the whole time. And then because they work with a mentor, and we have research funds for them, so the mentors will also have them present with them at a conference. So they're starting to get this experience of presenting and collecting research and going through the IRB and learning how to, like right now, this cohort right now is working on, doing the compliance training on the IRB and learning how to, fill out the IRB forms so they can give out incentives for participants and so on. So they're learning all these new terms and all these new words and how to conduct research, but it's a process. It's a process that they're working with the professor, with the grant helping, with the staff and the faculty that are part of the grant that are helping them, they have all these different support systems that are helping them. And because of that, they feel that, okay, I can do this. I'm able to do this. And by the time they're done and they're graduating, they've already published and they've already been cited and co-authored in all these different publications and journals. And they can't believe that these last 2 years of college that they've done so much research. And then it helps them, and it helps them with their self-esteem. It helps them because they're not just thrown into the research and they don't know what they're doing. Plus, they can always go back to that mentor. We have students from our first cohort still coming back to us, asking us for advice, asking us for, any type of help, or they know now where to look for things to get resources, maybe funding resources, because they were taught all this during the time that they were going through this pipeline. And so I think that all of this, and then, having these different opportunities, like going to different universities and seeing what's out there and applying for things that they never thought they could apply for. I think all of these things that they're learning is what is breaking these barriers and helping them. And not just that, they come back and they peer mentor our students, and they become, the mentors for these students that, who else to know, and we ask them, what is it that would make this, this grant better? What is it that would make this program better? only they would know because they're the ones that are going through it. And so that's how we ended up getting and making it better and better and better. And this is where we're at now. And this is why we have a great, dissemination rate on our students that are graduating, because it's working. This pipeline and this help and these different resources are helping our students, and we see that. So now it's just, how do we get it out there even more and, make it bigger and greater and help all the rest of the students that are going through, all the same things that our students are going through.
I might give a quick plug for actually making research posters, which when we first came in, there was so much pushback because we have a standing summer undergraduate research fellowship program in our office. And, the normal thing is that we create these research posters, but that's very much a STEM thing, right? That you can show all of these really great, I don't even know, formulas and such on them. And so the first time I was talking with faculty mentors about it, like, we don't do that. That's, how am I supposed to do this? Show this on a poster, right? But I'm seeing it more for me as a historian, the AHA posters are like, poster presentations are becoming an entry point into these professional organizations, into the conferences. You don't have to have a full panel, created. It's a way to get access into these conferences and have that kind of conference presentation line on your CV for students. And so if we can start them at the undergraduate level of how do you articulate the gap, the significance, the primary sources, the methodology, how do you articulate that? Just kind of like doing the elevator pitch, but on a research poster, that's also preparing them to find another entry point into that professionalization aspect and get into those conversations when we are all conferencing in person again one day. And so I think, so at the end of our program, we do have them make a research poster, which again, there's like, how am I supposed to do this? But I still think that there's quite value in that. And talking with them about like, okay, how do you go to these conferences and such?
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have about 7 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and put the survey link in the chat if you participants wouldn't mind completing it. I want to thank you again for being here for our TLC webinar series, and thank you to Dr. Bettinger, Dr. Sophie Ortiz, and Dr. Toribio for being here. If you would like to ask one more question, we still have about 6 minutes. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
If no one else has a question, I have another question. But I don't want to, hog up the conversation here. All right, I'm going to ask.
Fine, go ahead.
So how do you create a culture of undergraduate research? I think it's easier at a four-year university because I think there's, well, I don't know why it's easier, but I just think it is. How do you suggest that we create that kind of culture at the junior college level, to create a culture where there is an expectation for undergraduate research as part of your matriculation through a program, a 2-year program?
So do you want to know how we recruit maybe?
Yeah, recruiter, or I don't know. Is it a cultural thing on the part of the faculty? Is it whose shoulder do I have to tap to talk to be like, hey, maybe we should be doing graduate or undergraduate research to make our kids more competitive as they transfer to four-year institutions?
So I'm actually working on a so hard with like, you've got to find the money, right?
The money, grants.
And so,
we write grants, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's the hard thing. So we're working on a small grant right now to think about pipelining into the Mellon program even. And so where we are thinking about existing projects. And so what are the faculty? So it was really us having a whole lot of conversations with faculty of, okay, what are you doing that you could plug in an undergrad to? How could you use an undergrad? And then if we pay the undergrad and we support the undergrad, like, can they do your project with you? And so it is both faculty culture, right, of thinking, okay, yes, I can incorporate undergrads, but it's hard. Like, you're teaching a bunch of classes, you don't have a ton of time, you don't have the time to train them up. So can you incorporate it into the classes, into the coursework? But we are looking for ways, then if you can partner with someone on campus who can do some of the organizing of it, or the manhandling of applicants and students, right? So if you have 5 students who are working with 5 different faculty, but they can be, have a more centralized person who kind of coordinates it as well, but then plugging them into existing projects that support the faculty, support, their own research endeavors, while then kind of slowly shifting the conversation to focus on humanities-based research as well, and incorporating that. Those are my first.
And I would think, as far as like what I'm doing is I collaborate a lot with our community colleges. So not only that, we, just having to, for example, right now we're trying to write up a grant to include Alamo colleges, because and this collaboration that we have with them, like when we work with the different departments, we invite them, and some of your students are interested, and they start working with our students. We're trying right now to write a grant so we can have a collaboration with Alamo colleges and UTSA, and to support these, and when we talk about underrepresented, we're talking about women in sciences, that, we're talking about veterans, we're talking about foster youth, we're talking about first generation, and we're talking about, again, underrepresented, which can mean a lot of things. So it's pretty broad. And so we're trying to find funding so we could extend the work that we already have so far with this grant, and how can we get funding to incorporate some of the community college students and have this pipeline work, and show that we've had this dissemination, we're doing great, our numbers are great coming out of this grant. Let's apply for another grant so we can fill this little gap that it's a lot about money, right? And helping them, bringing in these students and bringing in this collaboration. So a lot of it is writing grants, looking for grants, and trying to find funding, because there's no funding out there. That's the problem. And so a lot of the work that we do is also on grants and writing grants and looking for grants to try to fund these opportunities that you're talking about. But again, I would recommend a lot of it is just is a collaboration. Collaboration is a very, very big plus, because with collaboration and you have everybody's input in it, you can find something. Somebody will fund you, because if you have good strategies and the outcome's going to be great, I know that you would probably get funded. There's funding out there, especially right now with the COVID and all that. But it's having this strong collaboration, I think, is what's going to help you and help us get these students funded, plus being able to know about the research and working with the faculty and getting them to also get the students involved in research. I think that would help.
Awesome, thank you.
I just wanted to mention that Joseph put in the chat that I think we've encouraged undergraduate research through the college honors program, but it would be interesting to know which faculty across disciplines are promoting or interested in facilitating undergrad research beyond the honors program courses. And I just mentioned that, yes, I know that, for example, Dr. Jared Butcher had a STEM grant, and part of that was, and then I know that Dr. Robert Miranda was also working on an undergrad grant program at UTSA. So I think we have some of this at our campus, but how do we expand?
So, like, for example, that's a good point you bring out. So, like, I didn't know that. So, like, that's something that would be interesting. Like, how maybe we can get a list of people who are working on grants and do have grants, and maybe we could collaborate with them, because we don't know. We only know the people that we collaborate with based on who we worked with before in our disciplines. But for example, these people that you're talking about, I've never heard of them. So maybe, if there's a list that we could share, that we could try to collaborate, make some kind of connection, that would help, I think. We have worked with the Honors College at San Antonio College. I haven't worked with the Honors College at Palo Alto, but and they have been, they have had different grants as well. But that would be I think that would be very beneficial and very interesting to try to get, maybe a list or a contact, and we could do the same, and try to collaborate, because that's pretty much what we're doing. I mean, that's what we're going through. That's what we're doing. We did that for the foster youth, through all of Alamo colleges. Now we have a liaison in every single college, so that was policy changes that were done through UTSA and Alamo colleges. So, I mean, it can be done. So that would be I think that would be a really good recommendation. to try to get, some kind of contact of anybody that has grants, especially if they have a grant that's related to or kind of the same funding agency. I know that somebody in the Alamo colleges got a Mellon grant. I don't know who it is, but I know somebody did, and I don't know which college it is. So I'd like to find out who that is, because I think that right there, and instead of repeating the cycle, we can do a lot of stuff that we've already done research on, and they can, you know what I mean? We can share ideas, share information. I think that would be really great. I don't know who that person is, but I'm trying to find out. I know somebody got a Mellon grant. I was told somebody got a Mellon grant. So I'm going to find out who it is. But I think that's a very good question, or a very good comment, because I think that that's really important. I don't know how we can do that, but that's something
Making
to think about.
connections.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do with this webinar.
Mm-hmm.
Just get the word out. Well, thank you everyone for being here. It's 11:32, so I think we need to wrap it up. Thank you to our presenters. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our attendees. And if you have a minute, will you please complete that survey that I put in the chat so we can give our presenters some feedback. And that is that for today. So have a wonderful Friday.